Hello, it's March 2023, and I've talked extensively about the liberal arts theoretical pseudoscience of psychology in many videos over many years, and even highlight that in overlays as it relates to various topics that I've discussed. And I've been speaking out publicly for, a decade and a half maybe. And in older videos I share how this came about in my life. Now before I get into what I really want to talk about in this video, I want to just kind of briefly go over how I came about all this. So in the mid-2000s, there was someone that I knew and lost touch with for a very, very long time. And I had the opportunity to, I'm going to use this as the descriptor throughout, being reunited with them. And I will never forget the day that I went to meet this person. I found out that they were part of the mental health industry as a so-called patient. Now there was, as a descriptive, a professional within that who approached me on the side, said they would deny everything that they were about to tell me if I ever told anyone. And what they told me was that this person that I was being reunited with, they were being experimented on by these so-called practitioners in the mental health industry. And I remember thinking to myself, like I had a lot of other things on my mind at that moment. I wasn't expecting to hear that, and I thought, okay, well, this is just one person. But within a week or two after that, another professional within that liberal arts theoretical pseudoscience of psychology took me aside and said the very same thing. This got my attention, because now I have two people, not even connected to each other, telling me this. So over some time, this person had no family or anyone looking after their best interests, so as a descriptive, I kind of took over that part. And I remember having a meeting with a bunch of these so-called pseudo-doctors and staff, and when it was confirmed to me, like there was no doubt what these other two people had told me, I was asked if I would consent to the experiments continuing. And obviously I said no. Then I started to look into the whole myth of psychology. Long story short, with that person, the last discussions I had with these so-called professionals was, from then on, I would have to go through their legal department. That's what they said. And at the time, I was still in the prime of my law and everything else, so I looked into it, and what I began to uncover surprised me somewhat. And I spent years researching it, seeing the scam that it is. And despite all that, as a lot of people have been following my story, after I left law, I did pursue a career within the mental health industry. And when I moved across country to Alberta, the first nonprofit organization that I worked for, I ended up uncovering the sexual abuse, sex trafficking of these vulnerable women. And that's a different tangent here. So really that's where the origins of my speaking out against the liberal arts theoretical pseudoscience of psychology came from. And even during the time that I worked within that industry, a lot of people, putting aside the sexual abuse part and everything else, a lot of people were coming to me asking me to help them to get out of it. And I told them, I said, this is on you. I can't do anything to get you out of this situation. Or even, for example, the psychotropic drugs that they were taking and how you know, they've changed and everything else. And there's even some family members that approached me as well. And I like, this is, you know, nothing that I have any control of. It's the people. So I've seen firsthand, for example, how sometimes normal people, you know, will have something traumatic in their life. They'll go through, you know, they're, say for example, feeling down, and then they'll tap into the mental health industry, and then they will heal themselves. One of the things you learn, for example, in the psychology nonsense is you're not curing people, you're not really helping people. People help themselves. Okay, and I've said this in older videos over time. But they take credit for it. Oh yeah, and people give them credit for it because they don't know any better. People help themselves, and I've said many times before, people's perceptions change, life changes, everything changes. Nothing remains static. But the mental health industry will try to bring people back into the system. So somebody might think, you know something, I feel better about whatever happened to them in their life. They feel better, and they try to leave. They actually have, the mental health industry actually has people specialize in calling them and writing them letters and visiting to convince them to come back, because hey, you may feel better now, but you're really not well, and all this other stuff. I've seen this firsthand. Why that is, in part, a big part, is numbers. They have to keep their numbers up, because numbers, for example, with clients, patients, whatever you want to call it, means more funding. The higher the numbers, the more funding they get. So really, there's no benefit to actually helping people. Now, I'm putting aside from people who have some physical brain damage, say from a car accident and all this other stuff. And there's people who are, as a loose descriptive, genetically messed up and their minds are messed up. Then we get into sociopaths, psychopaths, and all this other nonsense. But I'm just talking overall in general. The system brings back people. And the whole breakdown of that is they try to convince people that this is who they are and this is forever. Keep their numbers up. And then you get into the whole pharmaceutical end of it and the harmful drugs and everything else. I mean, it's endless. And I've highlighted even how people within the mental health industry, even people who are psychologists and all this other nonsense, have come out for 2-3 decades saying, yeah, this whole thing's a scam. And I've highlighted how the Rosenhan experiment proves, and it wasn't the first of its kind, nor was it the last. And I have shared how I participated, not to the same level as the Rosenhan experiment, but I did participate in a similar type of experiment, same kind of results, firsthand. So this is all firsthand knowledge that I'm sharing here with everything. They can't diagnose anything. It's just alleged opinions at best, putting aside agendas. Now, why am I talking about all this, and what is the real point of my video here? Well, after I terminated my second lawyer, this lawyer and I were talking, and finally towards the end I was told, they said they're not going to let you represent yourself. They're going to deem you mentally unfit to represent yourself. And I'm like, that's the craziest thing. Like, why? Now, I just want to segue for a moment here. Just before all this lawyer said, hey, listen, we can do a mental health defense here. And it's all over, right on the spot. And I've highlighted, even used video clips of how people have done that and destroyed their whole lives. For crimes that they did commit, they were just trying to get off, avoid jail. And I'm going to reiterate that the allegations of allegedly assaulting a police officer and obstruction I'm innocent of. And it's just not me saying it. You can read it through the transcripts, even what's left of the transcripts. And I've said, and showing evidence, that the trial transcripts were tampered with and things omitted, where they admitted that I'm innocent. I'm digressing here. So this second lawyer said that's what they're going to try to do. So knowing this, in my filed materials with the court, once I took over, I addressed this. Here's the irony part. The civil, my lawsuit, the civil end of my story, the lawyer, Douglas Merchant, who threatened my second lawyer in the whole 9 yards, there's plenty of videos on that, who interfered, politically interfered. It was political interference. Argued with the civil judge, who was actually a case management judge, to be more clear, that I am more than mentally capable to represent myself, and that the standards that I'm held to should not be that of a layperson, a common person, because of my law background. He argued that successfully. Now, I wasn't looking for any lenience. Just so, if anyone doesn't understand what I'm talking about, when you represent yourself in court, the courts have a duty not to hold you to the same standards, say, as a lawyer, a professional advocate. Just an example off the top of my head. Say, for example, you're filing materials, you don't file it properly, or the wording is not done properly, or anything else. The courts have to kind of overlook that and not give you legal advice, but kind of guide you if something needs to be redone or something, whatever. So basically, that's what was the civil defense lawyer was arguing with the judge. So I have, on the civil side, them saying that I'm more than mentally capable, I'm intelligent in my law, and they were going to try to argue the opposite for the criminal matter, because at that time they didn't know that I had working knowledge of law, but they knew that I would be, arguing against, what was being imposed on me. They just didn't realize, when I filed everything, everything's professionally done because that's the only way I know how to do it. And the first time, the trial judge for those two alleged charges, he looked at me, said, Mr. Meriden, you're representing yourself. I said, yes. But he's looking at my materials professionally done, filed with the courts. Kind of like, did somebody do this for you type of thing? And anyway. Now, there's two things that you can take from this. One, how the courts, when they have an agenda, can cherry pick and make up whatever they want. The second thing that you can take from this is how the liberal arts theoretical pseudoscience of psychology is used as a weapon, or can be used as a weapon. And when you look at the origins of this so-called profession, real doctors, and I have nothing against real doctors, they did not accept them as doctors. Now, and this video is inspired by a conversation I just recently had with someone, and they said, well, how did these pseudo doctors ever become doctors to what they are accepted as doctors today? Well, you can get a doctorate in anything. You can get a doctorate in English or math, and I'm not taking anything away from people who get doctorates in all sorts of stuff. You get a doctorate in art, whatever. I'm not taking anything away from that. I'm just saying you can get a doctorate. So you have you're a doctor, but you're a doctor in like math, for example. Doesn't mean you're a real doctor. You just have a doctorate. And that's how these pseudo-doctors squeaked in to being accepted in today's world as real doctors. Because they get a doctorate in nonsense. And I've said many times that people obtain various positions of authority or a title so that their mere opinion, setting aside agendas, their mere opinion carries more weight among the commoner. And I've said many times, on any profession, when does the magic happen that they become more human than human? Okay? So really my focus was how, for when I took over my trial, how they were going to try to discredit me so they can destroy my life a lot easier. And I nipped it in the bud right from the gate when I took over. And I even showed how this other court deemed me, I'm more than mentally capable with my background. But there was no indication about what my background exactly was. But anyway, so I just thought I'd share that little piece of tidbit. And I want, it's focusing on my story. I just want you to think about something here. If I was actually guilty of allegedly assaulting a police officer in obstruction, why did they go to such great lengths to lie, cheat, and steal to ensure conviction? Yes, they needed me convicted because that was their defense for the lawsuit, because the permanent injuries that made me partly disabled for the rest of my life, if I was guilty of those charges, then I caused my own injuries, and that was the defense. That's why they needed me guilty. And there's also, I've shared before, that if I wasn't guilty of those charges, that would open up the door to other people involved with my story, allowing them to sue as well. Anyway, for whatever it's worth, hopefully there's something you can take out of all this. I just really want to highlight how the liberal arts, theoretical pseudoscience of psychology, is not what most people think. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. What happened to that person that I was being reunited with? Well, over time, the real hospitals and real doctors could not understand why they kept ending up there, and what was happening to them, and why they were dying. And eventually, this person did end up passing away.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, when is it going to get easier? When you die.